Hello, and welcome to the Good News from the Corner podcast. I'm Jay, I'm your podcast host, and I'm also the rector at St. John's Episcopal Church in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm glad you found us. I'm glad you're here. Stay tuned for sermons, lectures, and more good news from the corner of Central and Greer.
6 weeks ago, I was critical of James and John wanting to rain fire down upon the Samaritans because they had not given Jesus a place to lay his head. And this week, Jesus is calling for fire to the earth. I don't know about you, but that's a mixed message to me. I'm a little confused by that. I immediately think of the destruction of fire. Fire gives us an alternative narratives to different sides of the same coin: destruction and reconstruction, revenge and reconciliation, justice and injustice. On one hand, fire for the purpose of destruction, and on the other hand, we hear Jesus saying how he wished the fire was already kindled so he could begin the work of liberating and changing hearts and lives. These are two very different calls for fire. The former call for James and John is a call for revenge. We'll show those Samaritans who's boss. And the call from Jesus today is the call for the refining work of fire, the removal of impurities of body, mind, and spirit, which is often a painful and arduous process. Very hot fire removes impurities, alters physical states, and melts what was. As it cools, it can be fashioned into something new. This parable makes me think of glass blowing, an ancient practice thought to have its origins in the Indian subcontinent as early as 550 BC. A glass blower introduces a small amount of air into a blob of molten glass, which is at the end of a very long pipe. Molten glass is the glass material that's composed of silica and soda ash, and it is heated to the temperature of at least 2,500 degrees, at which point it will melt and become malleable. And when it cools down, it's in a semi-permanent state, which can only be changed by reheating the glass pieces to the transition temperature. Have any of you ever seen a glass blower at work? It's hard work in very hot circumstances. It's a fascinating process that requires a lot of physicality on the part of the blower. And he or she must have controlled lung capacity to blow into the pipe, the dexterity to turn the pipe, and a good eye to know when the glass bubble at the end of the pipe has reached its optimum thickness. While this process is happening, the glass blower needs to pay close attention to the blob, for it is changing very quickly. It's being transformed from this blob of molten glass into a work of beauty. We humans, on the other hand, don't change quite as quickly as molten glass. We take much more time to soften and mold. Like James and John, we're much more prone to throw others into the fire for the purposes of vengeance and payback, rather than submitting ourselves to the one who will gently refine us. And I'm led to ask the question, I wonder why that is. I think it may have something to do with us exerting our will on our world and those who are in it. God has given us free will and intellect and minds to distinguish between the good use of free will and the destructive use of it. When we use our free will for ill, we're prone to absorbing some not so great ideas, practices, or thoughts. And the longer we hang on to these harmful and unhealthy behaviors, and the longer we practice them, the more ingrained they are and become more difficult to rid ourselves of them. And this is when it becomes an overwhelming prospect. Only the pain of staying the same becomes more unbearable than changing. Do we actually submit ourselves to being purified? When we have arrived at that point, when we know the change must happen and that it will be hard and it will be painful, we must be willing to move forward, trust God to be there, and to know deep in our hearts, deep in our beings, that God will see us through the pain of the refining fire and that it will not be too hot to handle or to bear. Many psychologists will tell their clients who are trying to break the bonds of unhealthy behavior with those they love the most, will rebel and attempt to force the one who is changing back to the way they were. Being purified by Jesus brings about this deep psychological and human phenomenon. The example of a baby's mobile over a crib is a good visual. When you remove one of the objects from the mobile, it tips and spins and turns, trying to seek its balance, its new balance. And this is what happens when we change, and our systems, our families and friends can't tolerate the upset, and they will do everything in their power to seek our previous selves. God is the only one who can return us to balance. We must ask, we must be willing, and we must be patient. God works with us in all that we are. We are a constant work in progress, constantly being refined and purified. And when we're ready, and sometimes when we're not ready, God goes to work on us, prompting us to get right smack in the middle of ourselves and to expose that which needs to be ferreted out and refined. It is the Holy Spirit that whispers to us, "It's time. There's nothing to fear. God is with you." Jesus does not say it will be easy or quick, but Jesus does promise healing and redemption. And Jesus promises, "I will always be with you, even until the end of time." It's more important. Jesus is the holy glass blower. He takes the broken pieces and submits them to the fire to soften and remold. And Jesus takes that soft, molten blob and refines it into a new creation that is even more beautiful than it was before. It's more important now than ever that we remain close to the great refiner and purifier, that we be willing to submit to that refining fire. And when we have been cleansed of harsh thoughts, demeaning speech, and harmful actions through the fire, we will be more able to become the light through which Jesus shines and others can see. The fire Jesus wants to kindle in us is a fire of change, the fire of God's active presence in us and in the world. For goodness and mercy shall follow you all the days of your life, and God will be there.
Good morning and welcome. If you are visiting with us, this is St. John's. I'm Jay, one of the clergy here, and it's wonderful to see each of you here today. Please be mindful in the order of worship in your announcements. There are a number of things that have begun again as we have slowly re-entered the programming life of the parish. Please notice the Women's Bible Study, which meets on Thursday mornings. Would invite all the women of the parish to come on August the 28th at 9 a.m. Our own Pace will be leading the Women's Bible Study that day with a class on rest discipline. So you'll see more information about that there. Also, coming up in a few short weeks, we will have our annual Jazz Eucharist on the 31st of August. So plan to come. It will be a normal service of Holy Eucharist. And instead of the secular music or the choral music, we will have jazz musicians here that day. So that promises to be a wonderful occasion. Also, as you see, there are a number of ways to get involved in outreach and the community of this church, and I would commend all of this to your attention. You see a word of welcome to our guests and also some information about where to volunteer. I'm seeing children come in, so we're ready to bring them forward. Okay, young people, come on. Thanks for tuning in today. You've been listening to the Good News from the Corner podcast. St. John's Episcopal Church is located at the corner of Central and Greer in Memphis, Tennessee. Our parish website is www.stjohnsmemphis.org. You can also catch us on all of the normal social media platforms. You can join us for church at 10:30 on Sunday morning on our St. John's Memphis YouTube channel. Share the Good News podcast with somebody. And remember, you matter to God. Your life is not yours alone. Come see us sometime.